Appalachia. Everybody in the world has a reaction to that word. Makes folks think everything from beautiful mountaintop views, dangerous hillbillies running through the woods with a rifle in one hand, a jug of shine in the other, to trailer parks, drugs, and blame near everything in between. The Appalachian Mountains are the oldest mountains in the world. They once towered 30,000 feet into the air. They stretch along the eastern U.S. from Canada through 14 states all the way to Louisiana. The folks that live in these mountains have seen and endured enough things that have happened to make a preacher cuss. Hello, I'm Larry Bentley, and I was born and raised in the Appalachian Mountains of Southwest Virginia, and I was raised there by folks who lived for generations right in the heart of them old mountains. Come with me and we'll take a look at some of the odd, awful, and legendary things that happen within my beloved mountains, and we'll be traveling around a bit, looking through the eyes of an old Appalachian at some of the crazy that spread itself outside the area as well. Welcome to Season 6 of Appalachian Murder, Mystery, and Legend. Howdy, my good friends. I hope you're doing well today. Thank you for stopping by. Now, them shadows creep long and deep over the old Appalachian Mountains, folks, and sometimes, they swallow up more than just the light of day. What I mean is that some places in these old mountains don't see but an hour or two of sunlight in a day's time. Bad part is that if somebody is up to no good and got a secret to bury, well, there's nowhere better than them dark hollers. And in Kentucky, it's said that ain't even just the dark hollers that you got to worry about. There's a sinkhole and maybe mine shafts stirred into that. Today we're headed into the heart of Kentucky coal country on the east side of that beautiful Commonwealth. It's a place where you sometimes hear somebody whisper secrets that some folks wish would just stay buried. We're going to a holler that's a notch or two past isolated. Folks call it Greasy Creek. It's a place where family ties run thicker than sorghum, and we all know that there's always some piece of dog squeeze that's going to have them fairy ties and use them to twist off somebody's wind and end their existence. This is a story of a lady called Jennifer Bailey, a young woman of the mountains that had everything going for her when she just up and disappeared into nowhere on a cold November day in 2003. She just disappeared like a fart in a hurricane. And it's the story of the bloody secrets that festered for years in the mud of the run-down old family farm until one of the mountain folks got tired of it and finally broke. So call your mom and them and tell them to come on over and have a sit down and buckle in while I tell you about what happened to poor Jennifer Bailey. Now, if you've ever been to Greasy Creek, Kentucky, you'll realize that it ain't nothing, no bustling metropolis or anything like that. It's a beautiful winding stretch of road carved into the side of a mountain, with folks' homes strung out along the creek, where everybody knows everybody and their grandma, and heck, their grandma too. It's a kind of place where folks still left their doors unlocked and relied on their neighbors more than they did the county sheriff back in 2003. Jennifer Bailey, she was 23 years old and was part of the fabric of that little place. She was born and raised right there in the mountains and by then she was living with her boyfriend, David Wilson, and their baby daughter, Chloe, in a little trailer right next to David's parents' house. Life was pretty simple, tough, and pretty much that typical Appalachian life that we all know and love. November in the mountains of Kentucky, can be a mean month. The leaves are gone and the wind bites and the world takes on shades of gray and brown. On November 12th, 2003, Jennifer was seen going about her business around her trailer. Folks saw her, even talked to her, and went on about their day like they always did. By the time her significant other, David, came home from work that evening, he said Jennifer was just plain gone. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Somebody be needing to talk to him. But truth is that sometimes folks just up and leave the mountains behind. They might head for the city lights, or maybe they go work in the fields over in Ohio, or they just get tired of how hard it is to eke out a living in the mountains. When they go, they generally pack their stuff and take it with them. Jennifer left her purse, her car keys, and more importantly than anything, she left her baby girl Chloe. And in Appalachia, a mother don't just walk away from her young'un, not without a fight. And I mean a hell of a fight. Now, David reported Jennifer missing to the Kentucky State Police. So they rolled in on Greasy Creek and they asked the usual questions. Had she run off, been in trouble, or had she been seen with anybody? David told him that all he knew was that everything was fine. He'd went to work, come home, and she was just gone. Poof, just gone like smoke off a turd. The state troopers put out the word. Missing posters went up in gas stations and post offices showing her smiling face against a white background. But weeks turned into months, and nobody saw hide in the hair of Jennifer Bailey anywhere. Meanwhile, the creek kept flowing and the snow started to fall. As winter settled on the Greasy Creek, the investigation hit that kind of a wall that nobody wants to see happen. Nobody, no crime, they always say, but just a missing person right now, and in a place where people sometimes up and leave, then reappear years later. That's all they had. The law just threw up her hands. They didn't have anywhere to go. But David and Jennifer's family didn't give up. They kept talking, kept asking questions. They kept looking for answers and felt as elusive as the fog was on that mountaintop every morning. Of course, it seems like every Appalachian story has a thick seam of bad blood running smack dab through the middle of it. And, well, this one ain't no different. David Wilson's father was named Dennis Wilson. No, not the drummer of the Beach Boys. This Dennis had a brother which would make him David's uncle. His name was Roger Wilson. The Wilson family had a sprawling family root system running all the way through Greasy Creek, but somewhere along the line, what we might call a bit of a disagreement blew up between Dennis and Roger over a piece of land and a boundary line. It was one of them old grudges that festered up like a boil on a bull's ass for years. Now, Roger Wilson owned an old farm, which was by then pretty much just a piece of land hid away back in the hills, a far piece off the main road. It was one of them places that you see with a fallen barn, falling over in an overgrown field, and plenty of places a man might use as a hidey hole where he could stick secrets. Folks had stopped farming it years ago, but Roger still paid the taxes and walked around on it, probably thinking that one day he was going to be a farmer just as soon as he could get another pull off his jug and think about it a little more. But as months ran into a year, and then 2, and then even 3, the Kentucky State Police kept doing what they do. They interviewed folks, they revisited the scene, they pulled on every thread that they could pull. And when they yanked on one of them threads, up popped Roger Wilson like he was a whack-a-mole. Roger was a man of the hills, tough as shoe leather and twice as stubborn as a mule. He had a reputation that, a right smart bit of a history with the law, too. Now, the police decided that they needed to go on over to the once-was farm and have a nice sit-down with him. They asked him all about Jennifer. He said that he didn't know nothing, ain't seen nothing, and heck, he hadn't even as much as smelled nothing about Jennifer. Well, folks, he was much in the dark as anybody else. And what good old Roger didn't know was that there had been what might be called a breakthrough that came in on August of 2006, nearly 3 years after Jennifer was dragged off. An anonymous tip had came into the Kentucky State Police. The voice on the phone was, that was a crackling and static. It was about 3/4 of the way scared to talk, the voice was, and to start with. But it told them that, look at Roger Wilson's farm, especially look around the barn. In them Kentucky mountains, when a tip comes in like that, you send a couple of troopers over to scope things out and ask a few questions, more to try to get a feel for what you're going to be dealing with when you come back, because you know that you're coming back. We all know how hard it is to search them parts to start with, so when you do go back, you drag the whole 9 yards with you. The Kentucky State Police, forensic anthropologists, cadaver dogs, and the whole shooting match rolled up on Roger Wilson's farm on Greasy Creek shortly after that. The place was so quiet you could hear the buzzards circling about a mile above it. The dogs leaped out of their boxes and landed on the ground and hit on something as quick as they landed. Their barks echoed off the holler as sharp as a wet hone knife. Now they led everybody straight to the area. Well, wouldn't you know it, right by the barn, just like the unidentified voice on the phone said. The dirt there was soft and sunk like it was turned over once upon a time, maybe for planting, but got left, the weeds and the brambles got left on top of it, so that didn't explain a lot, did it? They wasn't buying the turned over for planting story. I don't blame them, so they took to digging. It was hot, dusty work, the kind of work it makes a man question what he's doing in the middle of nowhere with sweat rolling off of him, scratching at a hole on the ground. But then the shovel hit something. It was something that wasn't a rock or a root. It was something soft, something that gave way like an old piece of canvas or something. It was under about 3 feet of dirt where they found it. Well, it was a body that was wrapped in a blue tarp. And as they uncovered it, the truth reared its ugly head, face, horns, and wings, too. It was sure enough Jennifer Bailey. Her trip, however it started, ended right there on that ragged old farm, just a holler away from her house. The forensics team did what they do and brought her back to the state lab. The autopsy confirmed the worst thing it could have. Jennifer had been shot twice in the back of the head. Wasn't nothing but cold, brutal, straight-up execution. But as the investigators pieced together the scene at the farm, another detail showed up like an Amway salesman at a family wake. The body had been buried right next to a pig pen. Now, we hillbillies know that pigs are, pigs. They'll eat anything. It's a common and gruesome piece of mountain wisdom, but most folks have heard the tales that if you want a body to disappear, put it in a pig pen. It was pretty clear that whoever buried Jennifer was aware of that particular piece of mountain knowledge and intended for Jennifer to completely disappear without so much as a hair bow left. The police now had a body with a cause of death, and they had a location that jumped up and waved its hands and screamed Roger Wilson. So the KSP drove over to Roger Wilson like the hawk of death and dragged him in for questioning. I reckon they figured that he had a right smart bit of splaining to do, and they was willing to be all ears. He may as well have changed his name to Stonewall Wilson because he sat there and denied everything from what he ate for breakfast to his name actually being Roger. He said that he didn't know how Jennifer ended up on his property. Why, he hadn't seen her in years. Yeah, we know at least 3, don't we? But the KSP, though, they wasn't going to let this one go. Not after 3 years of silence and the thought of what was going on with the pigs. So they had to let Roger walk for the time being. They started talking to other folks up on Greasy Creek. Neighbors, family members, anybody that might have seen something, heard something, or knew something about the feud between Dennis and Roger. And what they heard started to paint them a nice, ugly picture of what was going on. Seemed like the bad blood over the land wasn't just a quick simmer that petered out. It was a dadgum rolling boil that kept going. Dennis and Roger had a history of arguments so bad that it plumb went to throwing hands nigh on every time they crossed paths or saw each other. And Jennifer had been caught right in the middle of it, for she was a pawn in the game that was older and darker than she ever knew. Then the KSP brought in another Wilson, Roger Wilson Jr., who was Roger's son. Roger Jr. wasn't as hard as his old man. He was known to have a nervous disposition. He was the kind of person that folds up under pressure like a piece of paper. That being the case, police took the hammer to him. They told him that they knew what happened. They showed him pictures of Jennifer's body and slapped all the evidence right out under his nose right there on the table. That's when Junior crumbled up like a piece of cornbread in Mama's homemade soup and confessed. He told him a story that was about as sick as it was twisted. He said that on November 12th, 2003, his father, Big Roger the Stonewall, picked up Jennifer. He'd asked her to come over to the old farm, saying that he needed some help with something and even offered her money for the work. Whatever the exact reason was, Jennifer trusted him since he was family and went right with him. At the farm, Roger turned on Jennifer like a mad dog. He accused her of stealing from him and siding with his brother Dennis in their never-ending land feud. She probably had no idea that there was anything like a feud going on in the first place. The details of the argument ain't really clear. They've, I guess, been lost in the holler on that cold day, but the result was sure enough pretty blame clear. Roger Jr. said that his father lost a few fries off his Happy Meal and shot Jennifer twice in the back of the head. Apparently, he thought that by killing David Wilson's girlfriend and the mother of his child, he would hurt Dennis in the worst way he possibly could. After the murder, Roger Sr. then brought his son in, Junior, to help him cover it up. They wrapped up Jennifer's body in that blue tarp. They dragged her to the pig pen. They buried her, hoping that the pigs would root her up and do the rest of the work. Of course, they fully expected the mountain to keep its mouth shut. Like we who live in them mountains know, a whole lot of the time they do, until they decide to cough up the evidence and put somebody away. Roger Wilson Jr. or Sr. was pounced on, arrested, and charged with the murder of Jennifer Bailey. Roger Jr. was charged, but he promptly cut him a deal with the prosecution to testify against his father in exchange for a lighter sentence. The trial of Roger Wilson Sr. was the talk of Greasy Creek for a spell, and folks still talk about it today. In fact, it was the kind of event that brought out every person up there and all the kin folks, the neighbors, and even the curious souls from about 3 counties around. Now, Roger Sr.'s defense was pretty simple. His son was lying. The police coerced him. I didn't do anything. I loved Jennifer like my own. He argued that Roger Jr., facing a lifetime in prison, had concocted the story to save his own skin, throwing his old man under the bus. The prosecution, well, they had Roger Jr.'s detailed confession. They had the location of the body, the bullet casings, and that actually matched the gun found in Roger Sr.'s residence, and they had the motive, thin though it might have been, of the boiling family feud. Roger Jr. took the stand and pointed his shaky finger at his daddy. He went over the horror of the day, the cold blood, the digging, and the awful secret that they'd kept for nearly 3 years. The jury heard it all. They heard the arguments, they saw the evidence, and they looked into the eyes of a terrified son testifying against his father. They found Roger Wilson Sr. guilty as the day was long. He was sentenced to life in prison. Roger Jr., true to his deal, received a lesser sentence for his role in the cover-up, acknowledging his part in burying and Jennifer, but not the actual killing. So justice is it is slow and grinding away, but finally it came to a riding into Greasy Creek, a whipping and a whumping the 2 masterminds of murder into the dirt. Jennifer Bailey's family finally knew where she was and who had taken her from her. But the scars of that murder and the ugly gouges of betrayal and violence still mark the land. The old farm where Jennifer was buried has probably been left to the briars and the wild hogs, even more than it already was. The pig pen, it's silent now and still holds the memory of a dark secret. Today, if you drive through Greasy Creek, past the houses and the old homesteads, the creek still flows, the mountains still stand, but the story of Jennifer Bailey hangs in the air around wood stoves and over coffee pots. It's a reminder that not all monsters wear horns and have cloven hooves. Sometimes the darkest things in the mountains are born of human grudges, of bad blood, and of the quiet, simmering hatred that can poison family from the inside out. So as the night deepens and the cold air settles into the hollers, remember Jennifer Bailey and remember that the secrets buried on the old farm have a way of coming back to haunt the living. Folks, I hope you got something out of our story today. If you did, please rate and review the podcast, or if you're watching on Spotify, YouTube, or Rumble, throw us a like and Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you watch or listen. Come on over to Appalachian Murder, Mystery, and Legend podcast group on Facebook, where we talk Appalachian or about anything else you want to talk about. I'll be back real soon with another Appalachian murder, mystery, or legend, and I will see you then.